Russia's threatening policies against NATO and EU members in strategic centers such as Eastern Europe, the Nordic regions and the Baltics have been on the agenda for a long time. NATO has been on high alert to counter Moscow's dominance in these areas and to prevent Russian leader Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine from being supported, especially from the Baltics and the Nordic regions. Prior to this state of alert, Finland, as the 31st NATO member, had largely disrupted Putin's war effort in the Baltics. But NATO's Nordic contingent in the region was not yet complete. The missing piece was Sweden. Sweden's accession to NATO had long been awaiting Turkey's approval. Finally, the moment of truth has arrived, and Turkey has reported a flash in the pan. The Turkish parliament has given its long-awaited approval to Sweden's NATO membership, bringing the Scandinavian country significantly closer to joining the Western military alliance after months of uncertainty. Lawmakers voted late Tuesday night to approve the legislation 3 months after Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan presented a bill approving membership to parliament. After 4 hours of debate, 287 out of 346 lawmakers voted in favor, 35 against, and the rest abstained. Erdogan is expected to sign the bill into law in the coming days. The Turkish leader's move was one of the most striking messages to Putin in recent days, but the content of this message also concerned the US. Erdogan linked the approval of Sweden's NATO membership to the US Congress's approval of Turkey's request to buy 40 new F-16 fighter jets and kits to modernize Turkey's existing fleet. US President Joe Biden's administration has never formally linked the sale of the F-16s to Turkey's approval of Sweden's NATO membership, but several influential members of Congress had said they would not support the sale unless Turkey signed Sweden's accession to the alliance. Now, administration officials say they expect relatively quick action on the F-16 sale once Turkey has ratified Sweden's NATO membership. In addition, Canada and other NATO allies shared a major announcement to lift the arms embargo on Turkey. Sweden, on the other hand, shared the first statements on Turkish leader Erdogan's decision to approve their accession to NATO. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson welcomed the vote of the Turkish General Assembly in favor of Sweden's accession to NATO. Swedish Foreign Minister Tobias Billström also said that the vote was of course good, but that the government is now waiting for the Turkish president to sign and send the ratification. Outgoing Finnish President Sauli Niinisto congratulated Sweden by writing in Swedish on X, formerly Twitter. Sauli Niinisto said he was very pleased with the Turkish parliament's vote to approve Sweden's NATO membership. According to Niinisto, Sweden's accession will increase security in the Baltic region and further strengthen the entire alliance, as Sweden's membership will complete Finland's accession. Turkey's endorsement leaves Hungary as the only country still to endorse Sweden's accession. This was a critical assessment from NATO's highest authority. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg welcomed the vote, saying he expected Hungary to ratify Sweden as soon as possible. According to Stoltenberg, Sweden's membership makes NATO stronger and more secure. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban signaled progress by inviting Swedish Prime Minister Kristersson to visit for negotiations on the issue. Orban expressed his belief that a more intensive dialogue could contribute to strengthening trust between Hungary and Sweden, and thus allow for further strengthening of political and security arrangements. A spokesperson for Kristersson said they had no comment on the invitation for the time being, but Swedish Foreign Minister Tobias Billström emphasized that the government should consider what Hungary's statements imply before responding. Orban has promised not to delay the process, so Turkey's approval means Sweden's accession to NATO. Hungary's approval of Sweden's accession to NATO, following Turkey's lead, would be a big deal for a country with a long tradition of neutrality and a policy of non-alignment, which only decided to abandon it in the face of growing Russian aggression. In the past, Hungarian officials have presented different narratives at home about Sweden's application and insisted to their Western allies that Budapest would not be the last country to sign. But now that the knot has been untied and disagreement resolved, the international military alliance will be much stronger and more cohesive. Turkey, which had the biggest stake in Sweden joining NATO, influenced Hungary to do the same. So what is Sweden doing about this issue now? Sweden has already started working on the accession process of Turkey and Hungary to NATO, and has taken important steps to join the international military alliance. Sweden has already signed an agreement with the United States, giving full access to its 17 military bases, and has begun the NATO integration process. Paul Levin, director of the Institute for Turkish Studies at Stockholm University, said that Sweden's NATO membership and this agreement will be very important for the Nordic country. Important statements were also made by US officials about Sweden's efforts in the membership process and its contribution to NATO. John Kirby, spokesman for the National Security Council in Washington, said that Sweden is more than ready to become a NATO ally. Kirby emphasized that Sweden has a modern and advanced army and would bring really important military capabilities to the alliance. But what will Sweden actually contribute to NATO? With NATO membership, Sweden's defense capability will become part of NATO's collective defense of the entire alliance. Sweden's imminent contribution to NATO will increase the alliance's overall defense capability. Moreover, as a member, Sweden will participate intensively in NATO activities, operations and interventions as part of NATO's measures for deterrence and defense of the entire alliance, in line with NATO's 360-degree perspective. What worries Moscow the most is Sweden's geostrategic location, which is crucial for ensuring that reinforcements can reach Europe from North America. Mainland Sweden has the longest Baltic Sea coastline of any country in Europe, which would allow the alliance to strengthen its influence and military control over the Baltic Sea. In addition, Sweden serves as a link between Denmark in continental Europe. The country is deeply interconnected with Finland and Norway in the north, and Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania along the Baltic Sea. Geographically, Sweden connects the High North, the North Atlantic, and the Baltic Sea in a way that allows for a coherent and integrated defense of the entire region. With these characteristics, Swedish territory will give NATO greater strategic and operational depth, make lines of communication more resilient, and provide defense planners with options to use Swedish territory for defense and deterrence missions. When discussing Swedish geography, the large and centrally located island of Gotland in the Baltic Sea is noteworthy. In peacetime, Gotland could play a role in increasing NATO's control over the Baltic Sea. In a crisis, Gotland is likely to be a factor in defending the Baltic states against Russian aggression. But at a time when many national defense advocates are struggling to meet the growing demand for arms production to replenish depleted stockpiles, Sweden's domestic industry, including companies like Saab and Ericsson, could serve as a backstop to NATO's industrial efforts. In addition to meeting domestic needs, Swedish defense companies are export-oriented and will be able to establish partnerships and bid for NATO procurement projects when the country joins the alliance. The country's armed forces are one of the most important factors in support for NATO. Sweden's air defense and naval capabilities will strengthen NATO. The Swedish Air Force is generally regarded as Sweden's strongest military service. With more than 90 domestically produced multi-role JAS-39 Gripen jets in active service, Sweden will provide NATO with considerable air capability and know-how. However, with many NATO allies, including neighbors Finland and Norway, partners in the US-led F-35 program, the Swedish Air Force would be an outlier from a platform perspective. Integrating Sweden's Gripen jets into NATO's F-35 fleet and ensuring interoperability in terms of communication and role expertise should be a top priority for both Sweden and NATO. The agreement between the Nordic countries to operate around 250 fighter jets as a joint operational fleet and to provide air policing to Iceland is also important for NATO's joint air power. The country's missile defenses will also help NATO advance its air power. A reliable air and missile defense system is an important element of NATO's deterrence and defense in the Baltic Sea region. Sweden and Denmark recently joined 15 NATO allies, including Finland, Norway and the Baltic states, in the 2022 German-led European Sky Shield initiative, which aims to improve Europe's air defense capabilities through the joint acquisition of interoperable, closed air defense systems. As part of its integrated planning, NATO could enhance Sweden's existing short-range air defense and medium-range capabilities. This could also entail the deployment of allied missile defense systems and anti-drone systems on Swedish territory. Finally, Sweden's contribution to NATO include the country's coastal defense. Although Sweden is likely to share maritime responsibilities in the Baltic Sea with Finland, Poland, Germany, Denmark and the United States, its regional maritime knowledge and advanced capabilities are vital assets for NATO in the increasingly contested Baltic waters. Currently, Sweden's naval capacity consists of Gotland-class submarines, Visby-class corvettes, minesweepers, an intelligence ship and amphibious regiments, with new investments on the way to replace older vessels. The 3 diesel-powered Gotland-class submarines are a particularly important asset for NATO's underwater operations in the Baltic Sea. Unlike the blue water submarines of many allies, Swedish submarines are adapted to operate in the shallow brown waters of the Baltic Sea. Sweden's submarine capabilities, especially its underwater sensors and submarines, and Sweden's familiarity with Baltic waters, could play an important role in monitoring and enhancing the protection of regional critical infrastructure. In sum, Sweden's accession to NATO with Turkey's approval is likely to elevate the international military alliance in many ways and intimidate Russia considerably. Thank you.